Hello everyone, so good to see you. So, amongst all the games that I've been playing lately, and there are a lot right now, I made sure to set aside enough time to play one of my favorite games on the N64, Banjo-Tooie. I am so happy that this is finally on NSO, but this, of course, revives some of that age-old discussion between people asking, which one is better, Banjo-Kazooie or its sequel? Many people say Banjo-Kazooie is the better game, and I understand why. It is definitely more focused, concise, gets to the points, the worlds are compact enough that it leaves you feeling satisfied without overstaying its welcome. Don't worry, I very much understand why, in comparison, people would say that Banjo-Kazooie is the definitive title of the series. I'm just one of those sickos that enjoys the sequel more. And you know, concerning that side of the conversation, I get it. People will say Banjo-Tooie is very expansive. Even with warp pads and silos, getting from place to place is a slog at times. There's the argument that there's a lot of unnecessary space when getting from point A to point B. And if that is your main reason for disliking the sequel, then I've got some news for you. You see, in this game there's a room where you can interact with the alphabet on a wall. Much like the sandcastle in Treasure Trove Cove, you can utilize this to input cheats if you know what they are. For every 5 Cheeto pages that you find, your bookish buddy will give you a code for things like doubling how many feathers or eggs you can hold to making you invulnerable to fall damage. But there are codes that you will never see in game unless you happen to just be in the know. In my case, that happened to be having a copy of Nintendo Power magazine, still helping me out to this day, bless your soul. To reach the code room, in the first world Mayahem Temple, use Mumbo to activate the Golden Goliath. Kick open the nearby door and traverse to this building right here. The door can be blasted open with a grenade egg that you learn later in the game, or access early by just kicking it wide open. Spell out Cheeto first, the letter should light up red as you're doing so. I think your greatest difficulty will be how absurdly sensitive the control stick is. How did I even do this back in the day? Then, put in Super Banjo. There will be no feedback when putting these letters in now, that's totally normal. Cheeto will tell you when you have successfully put it in. Activate the code using the list on the right, and now you're a fast bear. I did a short video of this for comparison's sake using Banjo, going from one warp pad to the other. This is just to compare, by the way. I'm not saying to walk everywhere as Banjo, just so you know. This is only to show you how much faster you can get from one place to the other, and the difference is pretty notable. The speed of these clips have not been edited whatsoever. This is how long it takes following the same path with just Banjo on foot. Looking at the length of the clip, it's just a little less than twice as fast as normal movement. The difference further emphasized when Super Banjo comes to a stop right about here.
But Daniel, why don't you just move around this Kazooie? Use the talent try, you idiot!
It works the same with all characters. Banjo, Kazooie, Mumbo, who is criminally slow, and all the transformations too. This includes when you wear Kazooie's shoes, even the running ones. Sonic better watch out for the fastest bird alive. I was shocked at how many people genuinely didn't know this, which you could tell right away they didn't know because they kept telling me to use Kazooie and not Banjo. It's called Super Banjo, but that doesn't mean it only applies to him. It applies to everything. And suddenly, the worlds don't seem so intimidating and large. Traversal is super important in a game like this. I think we as players are a little more receptive to games of this scale. It's nothing near open world, of course, but Rare might have made these locations just a bit too big for the time. This was like one of the largest explorable in-game worlds of the era. The first game, Banjo-Kazooie, never needed a code like this because it already felt compact but brimming with character enough as it is. There isn't anywhere that feels too far to get to when you're using Kazooie. But then compare Mumbo's Mountain to Bob-omb Battlefield. Super Mario 64 is forgiven a bit because Mario is meant to run and jump and fly around everywhere. He's much more athletic than Banjo, so traversal is never really in question because movement is just part of the game. Mario was also pioneering the structure of 3D platformers and somehow knocked it out of the park in one go. Even so, I think I still prefer Banjo games as a whole. But every so often I hear somebody say that they find Banjo-Tooie unplayable because they have to spend so much time going from place to place from point A to point B. And I think that's just a little bit dramatic to say, but I get it. I got places to be and only so much time to spend on you. This makes the game as a whole more playable, more accessible to some. And you know how we love accessibility. Honestly, it's kind of funny what this code makes possible. If you know how the mechanics work, you can in fact sequence break some jiggies. It's not easy, and platforming becomes a bit more of a challenge, but it's definitely doable. There are some platforming segments that are just barely possible using this code, and I have to wonder if this was intentional. Probably not, but I choose to believe. There are some jiggies that get easier, obviously anything that's movement related, as Banjo and Kazooie maintain their speed and momentum when running and jumping. Those terrible first-person segments like the mineshaft where you have to defuse like 15 packs of dynamite, I still lose even to this day with Super Banjo because I get turned around so easily, but it's plenty more doable here. And if you feel like a dirty cheater, I recommend using the code that also makes all the enemies move around faster. In the same code room, put in Cheeto like before, and then Super Baddie. All the enemies will now dart across the field with you. Feels like an even trade-off. After all, there are some parts of the game that do get a little harder. There's a couple of jiggies where you need to tiptoe as Banjo, and the sensitivity of the stick can make it very hard to do so without letting Banjo zoom forward. There's also some platforming portions that will be a little tricky if you're going for precision, so you might need to turn off the code for a jiggy or two. But for the most part, it makes the game feel so much better. You know what's crazy? The rare replay version of this game also had all the cheats available. But if you use one that was not given to you by Cheeto, the game will punish you. Because of the way that Xbox is tied to achievements and online leaderboards, having this cheat code on disables the ability to save. I misunderstood this back then, and when I came back to my game, I lost hours of progress and just sorta stopped that run. This obviously does not apply to the original N64 version, which is what Nintendo delivered here. Even though the rare replay enhances visuals, fixes the frame rates and whatnot, I gotta say, the NSO version might be the best one for me. Totally a personal opinion, much like how I think Tooie is the better Banjo game, just me thinking aloud. I appreciate what this game does, even if it was a little too ambitious in some senses. Rare was really giving it their all with these two games. Their worlds were interconnected with one another, so you can hop from one to the next or use the train station to do so. They really satisfied that idea of a true sequel, where you start the game with all your moves from the first one, from flips to flying to going invincible. Ever since the first game, they gave you that feeling of going to places where you felt like you shouldn't be, like the room with the ice key in Banjo-Kazooie. And who could forget Stop and Swap, the concept that they had to scrap after the idea they originally had for switching cartridges to unlock features. They are the games that satisfy the curiosity of relatively small things like, what lies beyond Spiral Mountain? I think it's so funny that Banjo-Tooie feels like the least Collectathon style Collectathon out of all of Rare's games. Instead of the 100 notes individually scattered, they come in 16 groups of 5 and one treble clef worth 20. Eggs and feathers are now bundled together into little nests. Instead of finding multiple mumbo tokens for transformations, you only need to find one little squishy globo friend. There's Jinjos, honeycomb pieces, Cheeto pages, but for some reason, they seem so much less emphasized this time around. It feels more about the exploration of these vast worlds. Great worlds, by the way. Witchy World and Hailfire Peaks were so creative and different at the time. And we all can collectively agree that Grunty Industries just needs to go out of business. So much backtracking, which can now be alleviated a bit with the Super Banjo code. Now I just feel like I'm advertising. I feel like this is a catalyst to begin some insightful discussion on intentional game design. At least I hope we can be civilized about this. I'm not here to criticize a decision that would have favored my personal interests. And you know what? That's the best part. You don't have to put a code in at all. The game isn't broken and it isn't unplayable. The original version is a beatable game. You can play Banjo-Tooie whichever way that you want now. The power of choice. Wow. There really isn't much more else to this. I just really wanted to inform a greater audience that one of my favorite games has that spot partly because of a cheat code. See? I'm not crazy. Even from my posts on Blue Sky and whatnot, I discovered many people never even knew this code existed. I can't believe that the most popular post I've done in Blue Sky for the past year is about cheating with a bear. And I know, a game shouldn't have to rely on a cheat code to make it better or to fix it. Why wasn't this the default speed in the first place, huh? I don't know. Tell me, Grant Kirkhope. I know it's not your fault, but I will blame you for getting the theme of Glitter Gulch Mine stuck in my head constantly. I will literally start humming that theme at the most random times throughout my day. Man, that's catchy. That's the end of this little video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm very curious, have any of you ever heard of this code before? I've already been told by people who have played since the N64 days that they never knew about this. You do not know true joy until you've run over enemies honking at them at high speeds in the banjo van. Maybe you begrudgingly played Banjo-Tooie normally and found out about this code after already beating it. If you do go back to it, I hope you'll try it with Super Banjo in mind. He's the hero that we all need right now. I'm not trying to tell you that you're playing it wrong with or without the code. I just want to inform people that these codes exist and they made my experiences more memorable. If you like this little update, please let us know down below. You can like, subscribe, and leave a comment on who you think would win in a fight, Gruntilda or Bowser. They both have underlings, magic, and heavy artillery on their side, so it might be a closer match than you think. When's the death battle? Alright everyone, take care of yourself. Till we meet again.